Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sound Off Sports. Football, football, football. That's the theme today, from fantasy to UNLV to, yes, the Vegas Nighthawks. Two great guests joining us in studio. You don't want to miss it. SOS starts right now.
Make some noise. This is Sound Off Sports, sponsored by Sam and Ash.
Welcome in to Sound Off Sports. I'm your host, Mike Davis, joined by my main man, my producer, James Edward Barrickman, the fourth. Guys, we asked you, we're going to kick off the show with all the great stuff going on with college football. Yes, I don't know if I've ever been this excited for college football season to officially be here. That's a lot because of the college football playoffs expanding to 12 teams. It's going to kind of be and feel a little bit like March Madness when it comes to basketball. So, James, we asked everybody at home how they think UNLV is going to do. Do they have a chance to enter into the 12-team playoff with head coach Barry Odom at the helm? James, let's start with our first response.
This first one is from @MundyC3 via X. He says, commenters don't understand the playoff system will guarantee a spot for G5. I'd say 1% shot, which requires beating Boise State twice, Mountain West Championship.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's a good starting point for us. Let's break down how this new college football playoff looks like with these 12 teams and how that all works. So, James, break that down for us.
So the way it is, it's a 12-team playoff. 5 of those spots will be for the 5 highest-ranked conference champions, whether that's a team out of the ACC, Big Ten, American. It could be any FBS conference as long as they're the 5 highest-ranked conference champions. Now, the next 7 are the next 7 highest-ranked teams via the college football playoff rankings. Okay. So 12 teams, 5 auto bids for the 5 highest-ranked conference champions.
So that means we can deduce, like, you know, UNLV, they're in the Mountain West, right? It's them who have the second best odds to win the Mountain West, and ahead of them is Boise State, right? So if one of those teams, let's just say UNLV wins the Mountain West, that doesn't mean they're going to have an automatic bid into the college football playoff. But what does that mean, James?
It means that it gives them a shot. Like, so let's say you have 4 Power 4 conferences. You have the ACC, you have the Big 12, you have the SEC, and the Big 10. We can assume that those 4 conference champions from the P4 will all get in because we're assuming they're going to be the highest ranked conference champs. Now that leaves open 1 spot for a group of 5 conference champ to get in, and you're just looking at kind of the power rankings of those G5 conferences. The Mountain West is right up there with the American. The American has 3 teams receiving votes in the first AP Top 25 poll, and that's Memphis, UTSA, and Tulane. The Mountain West has 1, and that's, of course, Boise State, the favorite.
Okay, so you know, I got to do a shameless plug, a little vertical integration with our Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network. We're going to be doing a deep dive on everything UNLV and football for Sin City Beat. So make sure to tune into that in the coming weeks on Sin City Beat. But James, let's get back to some of these responses because I think we have a very good chance to be a part of this 12-team college football playoff. Let's see what the people at home think about that.
This is from @Adam Klingdaniel via Facebook. He says, only if he plays College Football 25 on his PlayStation.
Okay, that's your game right there. And listen, James, you influenced me. I bought that baby. Jacob DeJesus. I mean, that dude is good. Ricky White. I mean, we got some studs on this UNLV roster. It's fun to play with them. What else do we got?
This is JD Fuller via Facebook. He says, just try and win the Mountain West. And he's exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the starting point. And from a schedule standpoint, James, I mean, right now being favorited as the second favorites to win the conference after Boise State, I mean, we really have a decent shot to have a pretty decent record. How many games do you think we're going to win? What do you think our record could look like?
I think if you're UNLV, your goal, if you're seriously looking at trying to get into the playoff, your goal has to be win the Mountain West without taking any more than 1 loss. I think if you're a team coming out of the Mountain West and you're a 2-loss conference champ, that's not going to get it done. But if you're UNLV and you can go undefeated, because they're playing teams, they're on the road at Houston. They got Syracuse coming to town.
Yeah.
I know they play Oregon State. So they play a lot of teams that are P4 caliber, and if they can somehow, as the the preseason second best team in the Mountain West. If they can get through that schedule with just one blemish and win the Mountain West, you'd be beating Boise State twice, as our one respondent mentioned earlier. One loss or less as the Mountain West champ, I think, pretty much easily gets you in. But you're thinking about the teams coming out of the American, too.
And that's how it's always been in college football. You got to have to be close to perfect to really get into that championship play. All right, let's hear a few more of the responses we got.
So you mentioned Jacob DeJesus, a big-time wide receiver on UNLV. This is his father, Rick DeJesus, 12 on X. He says, yes, I do, no doubt. He has UNLV in the playoff.
I like it. Listen, Papa DeJesus, let's clap it up for him. I love the fact we got Jake's dad calling into the show. That's perfect. All right, what else do we got?
At Aggers74 via X, he says, this might be the dumbest thing on the internet today. Mikey thinks we're dumb.
Listen, I think Barry Odom, it's hard to describe to people who aren't plugged into the UNLV football team, but Barry Odom changed the culture here. This is completely different than the Marcus Arroyo, UNLV team and situation that people were accustomed to. Barry Odom, or as Paloma Villacana likes to say, B.O.
Coach
back
O-Dog.
in the back, O-Dog. Like, this is a different team, okay? Barry Odom is a highly touted, respected coach, and the culture, the situation, what this team is playing for, it's not the UNLV football teams of past. So I'm really bullish on this team to do some good stuff.
I'm 100% right there with you, and you're right. If you're not plugged in to Mountain West football, and a lot of people aren't, you're not familiar. You just think of UNLV as that bottom-of-the-barrel scrub program. That's not who they are anymore under Barry Odom. They are a force to be reckoned with, especially in the Mountain West. And you're looking at teams like Boise State, who won the conference last year. UNLV is only going to take a step forward. Yeah, they lost Jaden Mayava to USC, and now there's a three-way quarterback competition going on. But UNLV is only going to take a step forward after this recruiting class they just brought in. So to think as the second favorite to win the Mountain West this year, it's not a crazy thing to think that UNLV could actually make it to the playoff if they get through the schedule with one loss.
It would be a super exciting thing to just see them in that top 12 in that football playoff. Let's get our last response here.
This final one from @ODemocracy via X. He says, unfair expectation. Even a conference title wouldn't guarantee a spot in the playoff. We are lucky to have Coach O. I hope we keep him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you got to just take it game by game. I think, like you said, James, if you get into that 2-3 win loss total, that's going to be a problem. So, keeping that record good and being in Boise State, that's going to be the key for this team. Guys, coming up after a short break, we're going to be transitioning over to the IFL. Yes, the Indoor Football League. We got two great guests from the Nighthawks joining us. Stick around for that.
You're watching Sound Off Sports, sponsored by Sam and Ash.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Sound Off Sports. I am joined right now by Mike Davis 2.0, the greatest version of Mike Davis. It's the head coach and the general manager of the Vegas Nighthawks, plus Bryce Hampton, the Defensive Rookie of the Year for the IFL. Guys, thanks so much for being with us. Bryce, let me start with you. I heard you had a bet with yourself. I always like this. When athletes have personal challenges, bets that they're playing against themselves. They're not even playing against the competition. They're in competition with themselves. That's always a good sign to me. Tell me a little bit about that bet you have with yourself, because you ended up with 8 picks this year, 8 interceptions, great stuff. But tell me about a little bit the psyche behind that and why you did that for yourself.
Just trying to set a goal for myself and just try to beat records that they had. So just having that goal for myself personally and having that mindset was good for me and bad for me at times, but that was my goal, to at least try to get 2 interceptions a game.
I love it. Listen, you come from Vegas, obviously, Vegas born and raised guy, Centennial High School, but you go on to Purdue, you play over there, but first year as a rookie, IFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, all IFL first team, all rookie team. I mean, transitioning to this league was not a challenge for you. Tell me a little bit when you recognized the game got slow, when you realized, okay, I can compete with the best out here. When did you know that?
I say about getting into the middle of the season, just trying to feel myself out, feel what's going on. Started to get comfortable with everything, and just was able to play my game.
I love it. Coach, who does he remind you of? You've been all over. You've worked in arena football. You've worked in IFL, many different places. You played linebacker yourself at Virginia Tech. You've seen a lot of defensive backs in your time. Who does he remind you of? Is he a Asante Samuel with the dreads? Who is he like?
It's hard to make comparisons of guys, our timeline, this day and age, stuff like that. Like, people forget Bryce is kind of just getting into his own, like, because he was a receiver that played both ways before he got to Purdue. So I think the sky's the limit for the young man. But as far as if you had to pick somebody, he's probably less physical Buda Baker-ish.
Hey.
He can cover. He makes the plays when he needs to make them. Right?
That's what I put on my Bumble profile. I'm a less physical Buda Baker. A lot of people don't get that. But listen, to be anything like Buda Baker is pretty good to me. Mike Haynes, the Raiders' great defensive back, he transitioned from wide receiver to defensive back as well. And he always said having that mentality, knowing what it takes to be a wide receiver, really helps you on the field as a defensive back. Get us into the mind of that. How does that help? Just kind of knowing, I guess, what a wide receiver's ticks and how they're thinking, right? It's almost like you're in their head.
Yeah, it's just knowing the route concepts of the offense and knowing how many steps he's going to take, how fast he has to get out of his break, the timing, everything. It all plays a part when playing offense. So I think taking that to DB, I can use that to my advantage to know what the offense is doing. And not even just the receiver, just the offense in a whole.
And, Coach, tell us a little bit. Last time I saw you, you guys were gearing up. You made your first playoff berth this year. What you've done for this program is incredible here in Henderson and Las Vegas. But, it was a devastating end to the season. How do you deal with the offseason after a last-minute touchdown, last couple-second touchdown from the Rattlers? And, what's the temperature like after something like that?
I mean, it stings. But like we talk about it, sometimes you're just guys aren't ready for that type of success yet. But we did say whoever won that game would probably go on to win the championship. And obviously the Rattlers won. But for us, it's just motivation and, put some motivation in the tank for like myself and the staff. Hopefully it does for some guys that we're bringing back. And we'll reload and regroup and be ready for a solid season next year.
I love, making analogies for regular people at home, just, how they can apply athletics into their life. We see in the NFL all the time, so many teams, they almost need to get to like the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship game, and they got to get that loss out to then be able to rework it and rewire it so then the next season they can take whatever they learned from that. How do you apply that? So, how do you get people charged up and excited again as a head coach, as a general manager? You're the leader. You got to make sure everybody's like, okay, guys, we didn't get the result we wanted. How do we turn this into a success? Because I think everybody at home could apply that in their life.
I don't think you talk about it too much, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, like obviously we'll talk about with the guys that are coming back. We'll have 10 or 12 guys coming back. And then us as a staff will rely on guys like Bryce and Q and Jerome and Wimbush and the guys that we've re-signed, right, to kind of lean on them to push the expectation for the young group that we're coming to bring with them. And obviously, like they all know that our job is to build a winning culture and a winning product on the field, and just to make sure that they're always going to get pushed.
Gotcha. I love it. Real quickly before we wrap this up, Bryce, I got to ask you, being Vegas born and raised, to be doing this on a high level in your own backyard, that must be a special feeling. What does it feel like to have people come out and see you doing your thing where you grew up?
It's pretty cool. Having people come watch me play that haven't seen me through college is a good feeling to see. A lot of my friends that wanted to see what was able to come, so it was a good thing to have and good to have support here at home.
I love it. Well, listen, congrats on all your tremendous success this year. It's exciting to have a Vegas kid who's already killing it when it comes to defensive back play. Incredible stuff. Next year, you better what's the personal bet for next year?
Better than 8.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I love it. Coach, any last things you want to say?
No, it's just it'll be exciting just to kind of get the fans back into it. And obviously we can't do it without them. I say that all the time. And, just to make our place, right, Lee's Family Forum, as loud as possible, day in and day out.
We love it. All right, guys, go support the Nighthawks next season. A lot of great guys on this team, as you saw right here, Lee's Family Forum, right here in Henderson. Guys, we appreciate it. Congratulations on a great year and a great season. We will see you guys right after a short break. SOS. We'll be right back.
You're watching Sound Off Sports, sponsored by Sam and Ash.
All right, everybody, welcome back to SOS. We're going to be talking some fantasy football stuff right now. It's the greatest time of year, fantasy football season. We asked you at home, who's your number one target for fantasy football this year? Let's hear what everybody had to say, James.
This first one is from Chris Rogers on Facebook. He says, Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, listen, I had Tyreek on one of my teams last year. The dude had a tremendous season, kind of fell off a little bit towards the fantasy football playoffs. But
You want to know why?
Why is that? Because it got cold? And
Bingo.
Bingo. And Tua
Thank
can't
you.
play under 50-degree
Yes.
weather. We all know that. But listen, I still love Tyreek. And listen, fantasy football, it's also about fun. Having Tyreek Hill on your football team when it comes to fantasy, that's some fun stuff, James.
It's fun early in the year.
Yeah. Oh my. I have him as my number one wide receiver. What about you?
I would still take Tyreek Hill as
Yeah.
probably my number one wide receiver.
I
He's,
love Tyreek. I'm still
dominant.
big on him. All right. What else are people saying?
This next one from Dennis Parker Jr. on Facebook. He says, CDTD.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb. I'm a little worried about the holdout situation. We'll see what happens with him and Jerry Jones when it comes to that. But CeeDee had a tremendous year last year. It really seems like from a tier perspective, CeeDee and Tyreek are really the top two wide receivers to take. What's your thoughts on CeeDee, James?
I am still very high on CeeDee Lamb. I'm right there with you. I think he's probably one of the top 2 to 3 fantasy wide receivers. I'm starting to get concerned about the contract situation.
You think there's a chance he doesn't play at all if they don't get it
I think
done?
he's going to eventually play. That's just, I don't know. It's something in the back of my head that isn't really sitting right with me. And I also don't feel very good about the Cowboys as a whole this year. So with all of those things in mind, I'm just a little bit hesitant when it comes to CeeDee Lamb, although I do think he's still going to finish as the top 2 or 3 wide receiver.
Yeah, and coming up later in Sink or Swim, I'm going to talk a little bit about the first round of fantasy football and a belief system. So we'll talk a little bit about CeeDee with that. But what else are people saying at home?
Greg Blandino on Facebook says Aaron Rodgers.
Really? Is there a chance, is there a world, James, is there a possibility that Aaron Rodgers could ball out and be like a top 5 quarterback in fantasy football this year? Is there any chance that happens?
There's a chance of a meteorite hitting Earth in the next 20 minutes. But, I mean, yeah, I guess there's a chance. But do I think that's a realistic thing to happen? No. Rodgers, the Jet situation is weird to me because there's still a lot of question marks on the O-line. Rodgers, who is he 40 yet? He's almost 40, coming off an Achilles. He hasn't had any in-game reps with these guys.
No,
and he's been there for 2 years, so there's not a whole lot of chemistry. Nathaniel Hackett, we don't know if we trust him as an OC. In theory, this offense should be great, but when you look at the OC, when you look at the O-line, when you look that there's not really been any reps among these guys, I don't know. I'm very anti-Jets.
Playing devil's advocate, I mean, they did draft Olu Fashanu from Penn State, top 10 pick for the Jets. They got Morgan Moses. So the O-line did become better. They bring in Mike Williams to be paired with Garrett Wilson. If Mike Williams is the Mike Williams that we know from the Chargers, then that's a pretty good 1-2 combo. And then you have Breece Hall, who's one of the best running backs in football. So in a lot of ways, a lot of people can think, James, like your mentality, everything could go wrong, but everything could also go right, and that's what's so fascinating about the Jets in this team.
The New York Jets are going to have to prove it to me.
Yes, I agree. That's true. You got to see. The proof is in the pudding. We'll see what happens. A couple more responses.
This is our last one from Kanoho Kruger via Facebook. He says, just a reminder, fantasy sports is Dungeons and Dragons for jocks.
Wow. How do you feel about that?
He's not wrong. I mean, like it is.
I guess kind of. Listen, everybody has their own Dungeons and Dragons something.
We're all nerds about something. You just gotta
Exactly.
find what
That's
that
how it
something
goes.
is.
It's all about just, listen, it's about gamesmanship and just, I want to beat you, James. That's part of, like, I want to be
it's
in a
a competitive
fantasy.
thing.
Yeah, it's
love
fun
it.
to do it with your guys. But yes, I guess everybody has their own personal Dungeons and Dragons something in their life. Guys, coming up after a short break, we got one more segment for you. Yes, it's sink or swim time. You don't want to miss that. That's after the break. All right, welcome back. It's time for Sink or Swim. You all heard that phrase in fantasy football, right? You can't win your fantasy football team or league in the first round, but you can lose it in the first round, and that's definitely how I feel. It's a cliche, but it's definitely a true cliche. You hear a lot of sexiness stuff going on about all these different players. Ooh, can I snag Devon Achane? Maybe you can do that stuff again, or maybe I should really, believe in a Justin Jefferson, because listen, he was the most highly coveted player last year, but who cares about Sam Darnold? No. You got to think safety when it comes to fantasy football in the first round. I think a lot of people are overlooking my favorite guy. Is he the most sexy guy you can draft in the first round? Certainly not, but he's the guy I'm targeting in every league, and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. This guy is bread and butter. He brings it every game, week in, week out. He's got the same situation. You know what he's going to give you. You might not get a round of applause or the oohs and the ahs when you're at your fantasy football draft, but you're going to be in a good position to continue drafting a league championship kind of team. So try to get Amon-Ra St. Brown if you can in your league. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, all these guys got question marks. It's crazy. Even my guy, Tyreek Hill, James says he has a question mark because of Tua and cold weather. Jefferson's got quarterback questions. CeeDee has contract questions. And at the end of the day, Jamar Chase, we don't know how Joe Burrow is going to be from a health standpoint. So look for Amon-Ra St. Brown. You'll thank me later. And make sure you tune in. The Fantasy Goat's coming to the Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network. Again, it's fantasy football season. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you guys next week on SOS.